everyone, I'm Arlisha Moore, and welcome to my Learn With Me series where I dive into ServiceNow one small piece at a time. So, today we're figuring out and dealing with client scripts. We're going to be building one. Okay, and so you can use any table you would like. You can use the incident table, or if you create a scoped application, you can use a table from one of those. I will be using a table that I created in one of my custom applications. Okay, so before I get started, be sure to substitute my fields for your fields that are in your table. And so, what type of client script are we dealing with today? So, what I want to do here is I want my completed by field to auto populate with the logged in user's details. And so that is why we're using the client script. If you need to know when and where to use a client script, you can always do your research and look at the ServiceNow product documentation. Okay, so let's go over to additional actions, let's configure, and let's go to client scripts. Okay, let's press new. Okay, so before we begin, I would like to do some research to figure out what exactly am I going to script for this client script. So I know that the client script runs in the browser when you open a form or interact with it. And so I did a little bit of research here and I found the glide form class. So the glide form is client-side API and it provides methods for managing form and form fields, including methods to retrieve a field value on a form, how to field, make a field read only, pretty much the same thing client scripts can do. And so if we continue reading on here, we can see to use methods from the glide form class, use this syntax, g underscore form dot method name. So we'll be using that in our client script. If we continue on down here, there's another article on the glide user. So the glide user API provides methods and non-method properties for finding information about the currently logged in user and their roles, which is important because we want to auto-populate that currently logged in user. So if we go down here, we can see the syntax that we need to use will be g underscore user dot the method or property name. And we go a little further down here, we're going to use the g underscore user dot user ID. So let's go back over to our record. Okay, so for the name of your client script, I always like to make it pretty descriptive so I know exactly what it is. So I'm just gonna say auto populate login user. Okay, so for your UI type, I put all because I want it to work on the desktop and mobile phones. Okay, and then the client script type is pretty important because we want to know when we want this functionality to take place. And so on cell edit is in the list views, you're editing in the list views basically, kind of like when you double click. On change is when a field changes. On load is when the form loads, and on submit is before the form submits. We want on load because we want, as soon as the form loads, we want that auto population to take place. Okay, and then it pretty much populates whatever type you put in the beginning of the script. So make sure that it is active. Okay, so let's get started. So the first syntax that we were supposed to use was that glide form. So we're going to go g underscore form dot, and then what are we trying to do? We are trying to set the value of that particular field to auto-populate. So we're going to go set value, parentheses, okay, quotations, and then we need the value of our field. So let's duplicate the tab here. Okay, and then we're going to go back to that table that we're using. Mine is this one. Okay, So for your field that you're using, we're going to go configure dictionary. Okay, and you see there's column label and column name. So we do not want the column label, we want the column name. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy that, head back over to our script here, and insert that. Okay, so what's the second portion of this script? We want it to auto-populate the user ID. And so we're going to use the syntax that we discovered with the glide user. So we're going to do G underscore user, and then we want that user ID. Once you're finished with your script, you'll end it with a semicolon. And before we submit, I like to add a description here. I pretty much do those on everything I script, just so my future self or other people that are looking at my script or project knows what was done. So it pretty much explains the process, especially if you have like a really long script. So for this, I am going to say that I set the value on the form for the completed by field to be the login user's user ID. I don't know if that's pretty lengthy. You can always shorten it, but I pretty much kind of always overdo things. All right, so let's save and see if it works. Yay, and it did. So our form loaded, and as our form loaded, our completed by field auto-populated with the logged in user. In this case, it was me, Arlisha Moore. So give yourself a pat on the back. We created our client script, and next time we will be doing other types of client script. We will also do demos for on submit, on change, and on cell edit. So see you then.